not a penny. From 4 years old, I did it 8 years for free. So yes, in North Texas, there's still rec leagues that if you wanted to start in coaching a team, you could still play. The difference is now pretty much rec is dead. So here in North Texas, you're pretty much already competing in some academy leagues pretty early. Okay, how do I get this coach to bring that talented team so then we could win and bring more? Well, now that coach is making a lot more, but somebody's got to pay for that. So that's where it raises the cost. But that competitive market that we live in, my thoughts here in U.S. is that the parent in U.S. is willing to pay an arm and a leg, whatever it takes for that trophy, win at all costs. Because they feel winning at all costs is my kid's developing. My kid is getting great opportunities. So that mentality drives up the price.
Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Inside Scoop. My name is Neil Crawford. I'm your host and also the founder of Anytime Soccer Training. If you're not familiar with the Inside Scoop, it's a podcast dedicated to helping parents learn about the soccer pathways that would be available to their child if they lived in another city around the world. And this show is hosted by Anytime Soccer Training, which is an only training program with well over 5,000 training videos that helps kids get better at home. We have a special show, a very topical show that we're kicking off the new year with. And I have a special guest that's going to talk about a particular issue that we always hear in youth soccer. And we're going to try to separate fact from fiction and add some nuance to the discussion. Coach Juan Martinez, who is the president and executive director of DKSC. Juan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Neil. Glad to be here.
So Juan, I tried to tee this up and make it suspenseful the best way I could. But what we're going to talk about is debunking some of the myths, clarifying some of the realities, and talk about some of the struggles from a financial perspective of running a youth soccer club. We're going to dig into your background in the intersection of putting your own blood, sweat, and tears, and I'm sure money into giving people opportunities. And we just want to have a measured piece of content and interview from someone who is actually on the ground doing these things, who has helped clubs grow, has started in the back of his yard all the way now to ECNL and probably more. I know people are really passionate about this subject, but I think we can help inform, educate, and share a perspective that is often overlooked in the comment section of social media. And that's why I'm glad to have you on the show. So before we jump in, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you're doing now.
My name is Juan Martinez. I'm a father of 3 players that are now graduated from college and 2 that are freshmen in college this year. They all 3 played youth club soccer from 4 years old to 18, and they are playing college ball. I'm currently right now coaching 2013 girls team, 2011 and 2010 ECNL.
Okay. And where are you based?
Yeah, we're based in Dallas, but centrally Carrollton, Farmers Branch, Dallas.
All right. So I love to kick these interviews off with an oral history. Just tell us how you got started, what was your motivation, and what led you to where you're at today.
Well, I started coaching in 2005 for the simple reason, I wanted to coach my daughter. She was 4 years old and really didn't want to pay anybody to do it. And I really didn't want to pay anybody. I just felt that I didn't trust coaches to really provide the development and also teach the life lessons that I wanted for my kids. So I coached all of my 3 kids starting from 4 years old.
And so when you started coaching them, let's define that. Is it individually training them or getting kids in the neighborhood and you guys are forming a team or what?
No, it was forming a team at 4 years old. Um, uh, in my backyard. So my oldest is born in 2001. So in 2005, I had seven girls, my niece and my daughter, and then five uh, family members, church members, just anybody that wanted to play. And we started with seven, but it was getting them in the league. So we played U4, U5. So we trained twice a week and then played recreational all the way through select.
Okay. And because we're talking about this is going to be about a financial podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Roughly speaking, how much did the family members, kids pay you for this service?
Not a penny, not a penny. From 4 years old, I did it 8 years for free. So the reason I did it was just to save my own pocketbooks. My wife's a school teacher, and so my kids were going to go to private school. My kids have always gone to private school, and I didn't have the means to pay for select soccer. I played select soccer in North Texas. My legal guardian that adopted me was a seventh grade pre-algebra teacher. She actually paid for my club dues. And so even when I was playing as a youth player, there was club dues here in North Texas. So knowing that, I was like, I either get off the couch and coach, or my kids don't have that experience and I have to pay somebody else.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
You.
I hope they at least gave you some gas money. Let's go over the blocking and tackling, though. Back then, if you created a team, what did you do? You just went to the club and said, we have our team, and put us into the rec select?
Correct. Our first season, we just went to a home association and just registered, paid, maybe it was $50 at that time per player, and we just registered for their league just by getting the insurance, getting North Texas. That was pretty much, it was easy. It was just a one-page application, the insurance for each player, and we had a team. That was pretty it.
If you wanted to do the exact same thing today, does it work that way?
Yes, in North Texas, there's still rec leagues that if you wanted to start in coaching a team, you could still play. The difference is now pretty much rec is dead. So here in North Texas, you're pretty much already competing in some academy leagues pretty early. So they'll let you in. Like, you don't need to be part of a club. Um, as a coach, I could do the same thing that I did back in 2005. The difference is I wouldn't even try to do it this time because of platforms. I would know that my work would just be just to develop other clubs players. So back then, I knew we could get in the same leagues as the big clubs. So that's what my goal was to provide that competitive environment for them.
Okay, and we're going to come back to that league piece because I think that's part of this discussion. All right, so now we're going to go on to a section called the real cost. Let's pretend I'm your nephew and I say, hey, I want to start a soccer club. What are the biggest cost drivers that I need to consider when I'm about to create this soccer club?
I mean, from start, like, you have no overhead, you have no directors, you have no facilities, you have the cost would be like, where are you going to train? If you're going to train at a public place, probably the quality is not that great. Probably reservations aren't the best or guaranteed. So you have to consider where you're going to train when it rains, when it's cold. So where you're going to train is a big, big, big cost. If you're starting a club with one or two teams, you pretty much could find space that could save your cost. Um, Now it becomes, are you going to pay yourself as a salary? He goes, but I feel like running a club today, if I was to start out, I think I would be able to save parents a lot of money. And I think I would pay myself a lot less from the parent, but make a lot more, if that makes sense. I think now what the club charges, parents don't see where all those costs go to. And but starting a club from scratch, it's facilities and then coaching. Back then you didn't need accountant, because if you start with 2 teams, 3 teams, 4 teams, you get a volunteer to do it. But if you have 140 teams, you need an accountant. Now you're talking about payroll. Do you do QuickBooks? We have ADP that does it for efficiency. So those registrations, it could be parents, this is what we're going to use to register. In fact, when we first started growing, we went into finding an app, and it was a karate dojo app. It was to register karate students, and we used that to register our parents for recurring monthly dues. The thing is that the reporting was very manual. It had to take somebody, hey, I need this kind of report, and it would take them a day to run the report and then submit the report. Now we have play metrics that it's at our hand, fingertips. The reporting is slick, but that play metrics is not cheap. So starting a club, you don't need play metrics for 2 or 3 teams. But as you get bigger and build bigger, your expenses go higher and higher.
Okay, so let's unpack that. So what we're going to do is talk about startup. You got 1 or 2 teams, and then we're going to go fast forward to a big club. Mm-hmm. So when you're starting out and you got 1 or 2 teams, you more than likely, as the director and founder of that club, you are going to coach. And I'm going to say for free for now. You're going to pay yourself, but you're going to pay yourself out of whatever's left. You're not going to have a statutory salary. And you're definitely more than likely not going to pay yourself based on the hours you put in. That's fair to say. But in terms of facilities, let's assume that you want to provide access to the fields the same way the big clubs do. Let's assume you can get the fields, which can be a problem. How much are you paying per hour for a field?
I would say roughly 100 to 150 an hour.
So 150 an hour. Ooh, and I'm already adding up. And then let's say you just say you want to do 2 practices. So that's 300 a week before you even hit go. If you want to do it like now, how much more is it? And I'm gonna get my calculator out too. How much more is it if you do lights, if you do it at night?
Usually it's $25 extra per hour for lights.
All right, so hold on. Guys, this is gonna be kind of boring, but we just, I just want to try to be super clear. All right. So how long would a season be?
Our season for I guess what the club is responsible to find fields or support coaches with fields, it's 9 months.
Okay. So 9 months.
Yeah. So December, January, February, the colder months, the holidays, teams go on their own, city parks close. Teams go on their own and they find indoor facilities or schools, or some take a break.
All right, so I just did a quick at the back of an envelope, give or take, I'm gonna say about $6,000 for your fields. And then let's say you had 2 teams. I'm just gonna divide that. But how many players? I know it depends on the age, but let's just say you start with like a 2013. How many kids will be on your team?
12 to 16. 2013, some are playing 11v11, so they play a year up, and some play 9v9 and they stay in their age group. So that's why I would
go
say
with 14.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just go with 14 to split the difference.
Yeah.
So that gets you roughly $500 per kid. If you do 14 before you even hit go, just for the fields.
Correct.
But let's do 6,000 divided by 24. Let's say you had 2 teams. That's $250. Okay. Then what other, so you got to do, so let's say what other stuff that you have to charge for? The uniforms. How much is that roughly going to be?
Uniforms, academy, select, and then like ECNL, you're talking about like 350 to 550.
Well, what's the quote unquote
So
what
for
we call classic? So select, what would be select uniforms?
select, I would say 450
Ooh. Per kid?
per kit.
What does that get you?
3 kits, the warm up, backpack, practice uniform.
Okay. All right. So 250 for the fields, 450 for the uniform. What else do you have to pay bare minimum? Like what about insurance and that kind of stuff?
Registration, you're talking about 50, $60, $70. I haven't checked registration, but I think it's like everything goes up.
I'm gonna say 100 to keep the numbers. So I got 450 for the uniforms, 250 per child for the fields, $100 for registration and any other ancillary stuff. What else, technically speaking, going into it off the top of your head, you're gonna have to pay for if you just try to do bare minimum?
Referee fees.
How much is that?
Ooh, select referee fees now. We're talking about 150, 160 per game.
And how many games?
I would say is usually split by 2 teams. So half of that, and it's about 18 games in a year.
Okay, hold on. Ooh, okay. So $75 times 18 games. Yeah, I'm only gonna use one team for this. And I'm gonna divide that by 14. So that's another $100 per parent per kid to get you to play ref. And that makes sense because normally when you collect it on the day, they ask you for $5 or $10. Okay, what else off the top of your head? And we're gonna move on roughly.
I mean, to start out, like, I don't think you need a lot of the other things that a big club, established club has. Because, but like I said, the more that you grow, the more expenses you're going to need.
And I'm going to put $50 just from some kind of web service. And I'm going to put another $50 just for communication. Even though I know you could use WhatsApp or whatever, I'm just going to put $50 for some kind of Team Snap or something like that. And then we haven't even gotten into getting water, equipment. What about equipment? Like the balls? Like I know they can bring their balls, but you still need some cones and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like to me, I think if it's starting out, the way I kind of explain it, if I'm starting out a club, I have to purchase my equipment, my nets, my goals, my soccer balls. I could have the players say, yeah, here's part of you go buy this ball. He goes, but I feel like if I'm starting out, I have to invest in my business. It's like I'm starting a club, so I have to invest in the equipment. I have to invest in you know soccer balls, cones, bibs, just any equipment you would need. So to me, I don't think the parents pay for that. I think it's whoever's starting the club.
Yeah, so I'm just going to say $100. It's not that the parents are paying for it.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, and this is kind of working itself out. If you don't include the uniforms and you're starting out bare minimum, it's going to cost about $650 to provide this service for 9 months to the kids. We ain't got into tournaments, whatever, which actually kind of makes sense if you don't pay yourself a dime. And that's not even including that's what it costs, not including obviously your time, not including your transportation and gas. It's not including like $650 based on what you're just saying off the top of the envelope. We haven't gotten into your services like your tax accountant. Maybe you're doing it as a private solopreneur, so you could just put it into your own taxes. That's the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Bare minimum. We haven't talked about someone gets upset and they want a refund, so you have some churn there. We're not talking about people. We're assuming everybody's paying, so no scholarships, and everybody pay on time.
Yeah,
$650. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
All right.
650, 700. Yeah.
So then, and you can tack on, what would it be reasonable to pay yourself if not, no moral thing, just like you had to hire a coach? What would they expect for that 18 game season, 9 months?
I would say for here, academy, select,
2 teams.
You usually coaches anywhere from, I would say, $100 per kid. Some coaches get $60 per kid, $70 per kid. That's per month. So if they have 24 kids, you're looking at $2,000 to $2,400. That's what they're making. Some more, and some less.
Yeah, and let me pull up a text message a coach sent me, and then guys, we're going to move on. I just wanted to get some blocking and tackling really quickly. I'm sorry if this is boring, but I just want to move through. I want to be clear on this stuff. So a coach sent me, he said, hey, we get paid 500. Now he does, it's, God, this is what you would call classic. So this would be your equivalent of, it's higher than rec select though. It's classic. I don't know, travel soccer.
Yeah.
575 per month per team for 9.5 months. And that gets you, and that team is 6 to 8 players. Right? At UTN it's 10 to 11. So I'm going to do 575 divided by 8 for a second. 575 divided by 8, $71 a kid, which is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, here, select, I have no problem sharing. We pay our coaches for 11v11, $1,500 a month, 12 months out of the year. And then for 9v9, $1,200 for 12 months. That is the start. Now it becomes amount of work, value, everything that you put into it. It's my decision to pay you more or don't hire you. But that's where we start out.
Now, before we go on, and I know this is going to be a horrible example, but in a former life, before I started going bald, I used to be a promoter. And the way we paid our DJs is who could you bring to the party? That was part of your company. You had a base level, but we would give them tickets and say, you make your money on who you could bring to the party.
Yeah.
Does any of that happen with coaches? Like if they can bring kids or they're known, you're like, okay, he has a good relationship in the community. I can give him a little bit more because he's going to bring me 5 or 6 kids. Does that happen?
I mean, it happens here in North Texas is the wild, wild west. If you're able to bring in and win, that salary's double, triple. And so when that becomes, it's basically like, okay, how do I get this coach to bring that talented team so then we could win and bring more? Well, now that coach is making a lot more, but somebody's got to pay for that. So that's where it raises the cost. But that competitive market that we live in, and then so when parents feel like it's pay to play, it's just the market that you're in. Like you mentioned, if you have a DJ that brings X amount of people through those doors, he's going to be wanting to play more, or somebody else is going to pay him more.
Yeah, it is what it is. So I want to make sure I get the numbers right. So 650 without the coach. And then if you have a team of 12 kids, 14 kids, it's 650 without the coach. And then we're going to move on. And if you have a team of 14 kids, so 650 for the year, you're saying you're going to divide, let's do the most conservative estimate possible. 1,200 a month. How many months? Let's just say 9 for the purpose of this.
That's fine. We do 12 months, but
yeah, I'm just trying to be super, super conservative. I'm like,
okay,
you just starting out, you're explaining to the coach, this is the deal. Divide it by 14. See, that gets you plus 650. And that's right. See, that's right. See, if you have everything is working out, guys, I hope this is not boring you guys, but it is what it is. If you've got all volunteer coaches and you're offering and you're doing this, you're going to be around the six. You can do it for about the 650 mark plus some additional fees. And I could see that. The moment you pay a coach, then that's when you're going to get in the 1,200 to 1,400. And that is, you're still probably going to lose money, but and you're not even paying yourself as a director. It's just blood, sweat, and tears, no fat on the bone whatsoever. That's 1,200 they got to pay. Being you're not even paying the coaches for the full year, right? You're almost furloughing them. And then on top of that, they haven't even bought their uniforms. And we haven't talked about the cost of travel. And we haven't talked about the tournaments. All right. So now that I said all that, let's fast forward. What happens when you get big enough to be in the ECNL?
Well, I feel like ECNL, I don't think it drives the cost much. I mean, the travel, because you're deciding to be in a travel league, that's where the cost is. The hotels, the flights, gas, transport, per diems, all those things. But for ECNL, compared to local leagues, you're talking about an extra $700 or $800 or something like that. So it's not a big difference.
So what about the coaching salary when you go ECNL? How does that work compared to the 1,500 and 1,200?
So some ECNL coaches stay there at 1,500, some 1,800, some, it just becomes, the body of work, how long the coach has been there, licensing, team player, they go above and beyond. They volunteer to do the camps to help out, all those things. But if you have a big club now today, so many things that parents don't even see, like you mentioned, the accountant, the accountancy, play metrics, ADP, the coaches, directors pay over it. So marketing, it's something that you could decide to say, okay, we want to hire somebody to do the social media, admins. You could have ECNL, RL admins, academy admins. Then as you grow, you could have programs. You could decide not to have programs, or you could add programs that hey, we're taking this money and we're adding this program. Like, for example, us for our ECNL teams, we have a weight room. So renting the rent for the weight room, the equipment for the weight room. Then you're talking about storage. You have to store tents, water jugs, equipment for showcase, for tournaments, for game day. There's so much unhidden, like that you don't even think about. Like, oh man, I forgot about that cost. So I always tell people here in North Texas, there's a lot of trainers that don't have that overhead, and they're making a lot more money than coaches. They're making a lot more money because they don't have that overhead, and they're charging less than what a parent will pay to play for a club. But then they're kind of like, well, your coaches aren't teaching you this. Well, they just have you twice, 2 times a week. And trainers, you don't have to deal with managing parents. As a coach, you're underpaid because you have to manage a lot of personalities, and you're traveling, so you have to be there a day before, stay late if the flights you're missing. So a lot of trainers, coaches, they're just focusing on the training aspect because it's much easier.
Yeah. So as you grow, now let me ask you something about culture.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I came back to you and said, I want to do a club just like ECNL, but I want to do a low cost strategy because I don't think we need all this. So we're not going to be in ECNL. We're not going to have the weight room thing. We're going to have some optional showcases, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to travel, all this stuff. We're going to play locally. We might win a lot of games because we're playing locally, but we just focused on development. and we're going to be able to save $1,000 per kid on the fee. What are you going to tell me? And don't be agreeable with me. Give me honest now. How are the parents going to react to my program? How are they going to value my program? Are they going to say, this is the same thing and I save $1,000? What are they going to say?
To be honest with you, I honestly would feel like you're wasting your time here in North Texas. I'm just speaking here in North Texas. You're basically providing a service to just, I guess, like I said, not to develop to the next level, because you're going to be playing at such a low level. It's like rec on steroids. So that's what I mean by today. I could be making a lot more just providing that service, but I basically would be like, I'm just providing daycare and teaching soccer and just an environment and a culture, but I'm not trying to elevate the kids to chase professional careers or Division 1 or change the trajectory of their lives. So if somebody was to say, well, I don't need a club, you just got to be honest with you. Honestly, that's why I joined with Defeaters, because I had kicks. I had exactly what you mentioned, the culture. We didn't have the overhead. We didn't have directors. We have one facility that we just took care of. And because of platforms, I knew it was just a matter of time where we're going to be dead. So we joined with Defeaters. They were ECNL girls. They weren't on the boys' side, but to provide something that could change the trajectory of somebody's life, a kid to chase dreams, we didn't want to hold them back. So we merged to become DKSC. So somebody could do it. And there's people that do it, but I feel like today, I feel like if you're doing it, maybe up until U12, that if you're still trying to do that at 13, 14, but you're telling those players, I could get you to D1 school, I could get you to pros, I honestly feel you're holding them back. He goes, because here in North Texas, you're talking about a lot of levels that if you're not in those, you're in the 5th, 6th tier.
Yes. So we're going to conclude this interview. I'm going to read a couple of Facebook comments.
Okay.
You know how we love our Facebook group. I'm going to read some comments and just get your reaction. We're just having fun with it. But before I do, one of the obscure arguments I make, I'm a little fuzzy on some of the details, and I'm just going to get your opinion. You may or may not have a strong view on it, but you just came back from Portugal, so I want to see if you have any insight. Mm-hmm. I can speak about the UK when I lived there. And in the UK, the majority of kids play what they call grassroots. And that would be a volunteer coach. And normally the clubs are pretty small, dedicated parent, maybe an ex-player, and you just play locally. And the best example I can give would be like how you started with your daughter. And because of the culture and because of the way things are set up, everybody plays grassroots except for the pro academy kids. And that's a tiny group of people. And so then what happens is the various levels of grassroots, some of those levels are really competitive and they don't pay as much because they're not getting a coach Martinez. They're not getting this other licensed coach. They're not getting a director of coaching that's getting paid, but they have a huge scouting apparatus. So if you're good, the academy is going to pick you up, and they have semi-pro academies as well. Not semi-pro, but lower tier academies that will pick you up. And we go back to what you said about the leagues. You're on the same simple pyramid. Now, that's the long version of saying, I don't think you can compare what's happening in the States so simply because our culture is different. So in other words, our parents are willing to invest and pay money, rightly or wrongly, I'm not making a judgment call, into youth soccer in a way that they're just not doing in the rest of the world. What are your thoughts about that from your travels and what you're understanding?
My thoughts here in the U.S. is that the parent in US is willing to pay an arm and a leg, whatever it takes for that trophy, win at all costs, because they feel winning at all costs is my kid's developing. My kid is getting great opportunities. So that mentality drives up the price. And I went to Portugal. I haven't been to UK, but I went to Portugal and I asked about the pay to play. And in Portugal, you have Benfica and Sporting, and they have academies all over the country, precision, so they could be close to all the neighborhoods, so they could service. And those academies they pay to play. So I want to be part of Benfica or Sporting. I'm sending my 7-year-old or 8-year-old to Benfica for their. Well, they already identify these kids that are 7, 8, 9. Okay, you could come in here, but they're pay to play. At U13 is where they take the best players and now they fund the housing, the food, the travel. It becomes, you're the ones that made it. And, they have Division 1, Division 2, they have different divisions. So most of those kids end up playing pro, whether it's, Sporting and Benfica, they're known as developing farm and then selling players. What I really understood now here in North Texas or in US is people say, okay, it was pay to play. If you're talented in US, I'm 99% sure that you're not paying, because you're helping those clubs bring in more revenue by you winning. So the ones that are complaining about pay to play is because they want to win and they're chasing trophies instead of developing and okay, I don't need to switch teams if my coach just moved. Am I in the right environment? He goes, because then all of a sudden you're just a number. And I think the win at all costs raises the fees for everybody. And I think if you're talented in US or you're talented in other parts of the country, you don't have to worry about fees, but you have to be that difference maker.
Bottom line. So
yeah,
let me unpack this for a second, though. So what I'm saying is, and I think Portugal, I'm going to bring some people on from Portugal to also offer an interview. It is very difficult when you talk about the world for obvious reasons, because everywhere is so different. Mm-hmm. But in the UK, the parents don't have an expectation that their kid is going to play anything higher than what they would consider to be grassroots unless the kid was scouted. Now, in the UK, the academies do form relationships with the grassroots clubs so they can find the best talent, and they'll offer some coaching support as well.
Correct.
And they will do some pay to play type clinics and camps and stuff to raise money. But it's not as formalized as it sounds like it's in Portugal, where those big clubs set up shop at all the different areas, these satellite programs.
So in Portugal, they have the satellite programs, but they have the grassroots clubs, the local. And when a kid makes or goes into their satellite programs, they support those clubs because I asked them, do y'all pay a fee? They're like, most of the time they just want soccer balls. They want goals. They want, equipment. They want new uniforms. So if they have a club that's really like developing players and they just support them with that. He goes, that's all they want.
But does the local clubs in Portugal, to the best that you know, did you hear if their coaches get paid? So how you are saying your coaches, you try to pay them at least $1,500 or $1,200 per month for 12 months, and you're trying to be equitable there. Do they pay their coaches at the grassroots level like that?
Not the grassroots, but at those academies. Yeah, at the academies, I'm sure it's not that much. From what I hear from other coaches from Argentina, we had a coach come from Argentina. I hear that they pay them it's a low salary. It's whether it's 300, 400, $500 a month, but they're not like, that's why I think a lot of people, foreigners, come to coaching US. That's what I really do. Well, for what I hear is like, oh my God, they pay this much in US. And that's the part with the US that I say is that parents are willing to pay whatever it costs. There's parents that would say, I'll scholarship the entire team. I'll pay the club just for my kid to be on the best team. I'll fly whoever you want just so my kid could be on the best team. And it raises the fee for everybody.
Now, here's the thing, Juan. I'm going to agree, but I'm going to push back a little bit. I'm going to add a new nuance for folks who are international listeners. Even in America, other Americans look at our brothers and sisters in Texas and say, y'all crazy. So Texas has its own culture within the broader American culture of competitiveness. That's number one. And it is what it is. Be proud of it. Own it. But I just, from what I'm hearing, and maybe I'm overgeneralizing it, but it's a really competitive. And I know when they have these ECNL tournaments, the MLS tournaments, those Texas programs, I'm going to use a fancy word, over-index in those competitions. They win a lot because it's just part of the culture. It is what it is. You know how they say, go big, go home. Everything in Texas that's just the culture. What do you say?
I mean, that is the culture. I would tell you it's spot on. The only thing that I would basically say is different. I don't think we're winning as much as we did 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And I think it's because back then we had the talent pool, teams, players stayed. Now it's NIL. It's I need that player. And you have a lot of club hopping. You have a lot of movement. So as a team, our style of play in North Texas is very known in general as a kick and chase, as a physical brute, just capitalize on their mistakes. And once we get into, I give you example, ECNO last year, our conference didn't do well. Our conference didn't do well because there's so much movement here in North Texas. If you don't make the playoffs, there's movement already. And it's okay. I could come over here and go to the playoffs. Oh, I could do this. And you're already moving. So even teams that make the playoffs, they might not even take the team that they sign with. So going into those tournaments, I've seen where there's the Surf Cups or the Super Copas that North Texas was always in some age groups. You could always guarantee that they were going to come back and win. Now, I don't see it. And coaches talk about it. It's the development. It's not the same because you're expecting kids to move in North Texas every year. Every year. Right now, we're in December. It's already recruiting season here in North Texas.
So, okay, I was going to read some Facebook comments, but we gotten so much information and we're touching on this. So let me conclude with a couple of things. So then what do you say when people criticize American youth sports and say, hey, lower income families are priced out? What is your response to that? Now, UK wants a response, which is if you're good, they're going to scholarship you, but keep going.
Yeah, I think if you're good, I think the only people that really could change that to now, I think it's the federation or MLS. If they were like, we want to give back, provide fields, partner with clubs, so we could, I guess, cast our net to a bigger pool. I come from the inner city. It's Oak Cliff. A lot of kids come out of there, but there's so many kids that don't even know what select soccer here, and they're in our backyard, and they're getting lost because to figure out what league they should be playing in, it's very, very tough. We have so many kids that are on scholarship, because we see that those kids are going to be the kids that will help us later, but we're developing. We're investing in those kids at a younger age, where other clubs are like, let this club develop them and they will come and recruit them. So it just, to me, I think that's just a problem, that it's win at all cost mentality. And people that complain about the cost of playing, they just got to understand that in North Texas or just in US, wins are equals people thinking that you're developing, and parents are going to pay for that.
Yeah, and I'm going to give some of my final thoughts as well because we're just having a conversation. But before I do that, because we're wrapping it up, how do you, first of all, on a personal level, does it hurt your feelings when people say, "Oh, because you're part of youth soccer. I'm gonna call you part of youth soccer brass, but you're the president and director. Do you feel like does it hurt your feelings when people say these guys are about money or greedy, and then you're behind the curtain, you're in the secret meetings? I ain't asking you to call anybody out,
Yeah,
but does that narrative true that there's these fat cats making all this money on youth soccer at the leadership level, maybe not even the coaching level, but at the leadership level? How do you feel about that narrative?
I mean, anybody always says that. I really don't really. I used to be bothered what people used to think. Maybe 10 years ago, I stopped worrying about it. I just look at it as like, no matter what you do, you're going to have half the people that are going to have an opinion. And you could let it bother you, or you could just be like, now I look at it as like, I actually think about it as a compliment. It's like, we're doing something right. We're growing, we're providing services. But to me, I think the only people that are really, really getting rich from the soccer, I guess, boom in the United States, it's the people that have developed these apps for collecting fees, for managing, whether it's Team Snap or you name it, VL, these technologies companies, and then owners of clubs. We're a 501c. So it's like nobody owns the DKSC, but you have a lot of owners that are coming in. Those are the ones that are really, really getting rich. And to me, I say congratulations. Like they shouldn't be like, okay, well, they're getting rich. Is I always say the parents. You're just feeding the beast. That's the thing I get into these conversations and people say, you as the president, executive director of a club, how dare you say that the problem exists with the parents? You're the one that's controlling the club. How dare you? I was like, I'm a parent of 3. I got off of the couch and I decided to coach my own 3 kids. I was like, you're able, if your kid is good, disciplined, help, you could talk to the coach. I scholarship parents, but then I put them to work, and a lot of times when I ask those parents that are scholarship and they don't want to do it, like those are parents that just want a handout. And so they have an opinion, but I don't care really about opinions, what people think about. It doesn't bother me one bit.
Yeah. See, so here's the thing, and I'm taking that advice as well, and I've kind of had to let it go is because people are always going to have opinion, and you just cannot. I always tell people, I tell my sons all the time, during his lifetime, Martin Luther King had a approval rating below 50%. So let's just start there. All right. Jesus was unpopular. So come on. So you don't stand a chance. So that's why I always start there. Yeah. Second point I was going to make, and I'm giving my closing thoughts based on some of the things you said and some of my ideas. In any industry, if you want to bring the cost down, then the industry regulators, for lack of a better term, have to create the conditions where the market can work to bring the cost down. Number one, you have to have a transparent league structure. So Juan, if you and I create a club, we could technically play the ECNLs, because if you are excluded, then you're not able to offer that same level of at least perceived value. You can have the greatest team in the world. If I'm running around winning 10-0 every game, the parents are going to say, this is great, but you're not playing anyone. So they got to have a transparent league structure where teams can, and they have to allow teams to be able to be formed, safeguards in place, and be able to play everyone locally. And you still have your ECNL. You can still have your MLS as proprietary partners in the pyramid, right? But you got to have a way for everyone to be part of this, part of the leagues. The second thing is the math is the math, and American parents, they just have to come to grips with this. In the rest of the world, for the most part, there are going to be exceptions. Your child who has average skill, average will, is not going to get a licensed coach training them, exclusive fields, well manicured fields, game schedule, and all of these other services that come with it. They're not going to get that. They're going to get a volunteer mom or dad who may have played a little bit, is going to do the best they can. And that's what the parents tend to be happy with. And if they're really good, the academies will scoop them up. What we are offering here in the States is unique in the sense that even if you're quote unquote an average player, you're able to get some of the same level of training that you could get in an academy, and that just doesn't happen in the rest of the world. I'm gonna throw it back to you. How do kids in the rest of the world, now this is changing, but how do kids in the rest of the world really develop in most cases? Where do they spend the majority of their time? In a club environment or on the streets playing with their friends and their brothers and their sisters? They develop outside of this structured context, and then they bringing that to that one day of training that they have in that one game, not 3-4 days of training, games, tournaments, paid coach, team snap, play metrics, marketing, tax attorney, admin, supplemental camps to support you in certain areas, all these other staff, water bottles, tents, physio. That's not how soccer in the rest of the world tends to work until the kid is picked up for an academy. And if parents don't come to grips with that and just say, look, people are not out here, making millions of dollars off of youth soccer. We've already established that a bare minimum, you're going to pay about $650 per kid to have a team and do the basics. Plus, if you want to pay the coach, that's going to get you to $1,200. We haven't even talked about paying yourself. We haven't even talked about building in any reserve. And it is what it is. And then we haven't even you talked about it, the fact that the parent wants to go on that tournament. The parent wants to play that team that they heard about and coming from California. The parent wants to win games. You have to market. The parent wants, they don't say it this way, but you have to get your name out there so that you recruit some of the better players. And all of that stuff costs money. And Juan, I'm going to end with this. Man, I'm going on my soapbox. A lot of times people will say, oh, I'm providing a great soccer thing. And I'm going to get hate mail for this. I'm about to get hate mail. I'm providing this great soccer thing, and we only charge the kids $250 or $350 a year or $400 a year. And I love it. It's great. But the devil is still in the details. So if you are putting your own blood, sweat, and tears in it, and you're volunteering and you're doing that and you're providing that level of development, Godspeed. But just because you are offering a lower cost, which is great, doesn't mean that the development and the quality of the programming and the culture and all that stuff that comes with seasoned professional coaches who do this for a livelihood, have licenses, just can't offer their services for free. We got to have a real conversation about, are we talking about, you're saying that your Honda costs half the cost of my Mercedes, but there's a difference between the Honda and the Mercedes. But go ahead, Juan, give me your final thoughts.
Yeah, I think when you said really the change and the league, the close leagues, at U13, MLS, ECNL, but at the grassroots, okay, when kids really develop, I think the federation could come in and say, okay, for 8 years old, 9 years old, 10-year-olds, this is what we're going to do and support initiatives. support this region, that region, that region to grow the game to whatever. He goes, but unless the federation does it, the pay to play and the costs are going to be there because running leagues today, we have a lot of people running leagues and the leagues are very expensive, because people that own companies that run leagues here in North Texas, they're having a ref assigner. They have their overhead, their accountant, their scheduler, their trainer. They have to book contracts with city parks or build their own complexes. That costs money. So when they run a league and it's $4,000 to play in their league, people are like, oh man, they're making so much money. They're just about the money. They're running a business. They have to invest, but then we have no alternatives. And so we have to play in those leagues. We pass the cost to the parent, but the federation could get involved and say, okay, we're going to create leagues initiatives to support that. If you can't afford to play with these clubs, this league here, maybe having some directors that mentor coaches for the service, like you're saying, so you could get better service. Because right now, when somebody registers for rec, they're getting somebody's never kicked the ball. And so, and my daughter and my niece were rec coaches for one season, and they were out there and the parents were like, we're not winning. It was like my kids played, my niece and my daughter played college ball. They're trying to provide an environment. I tell them, you know what your number one job is? Just don't kill the love of the game. And they're playing all these games with the parents are like, well, they're not winning. So I'm going to go with this winning team because that coach is training 4 days a week and he's treating it like a World Cup. But unless the federation gets involved, I don't think nothing's going to change. And I guess it's just a culture. I've been in pay to play since I was a player, so, 35, 40 years ago when I was playing select, it was pay to play, and it's just gotten more. The stakes have gotten bigger because now there's a lot of avenues to go play professional. A lot of U.S. males and females are going overseas or signing professional contracts. They're skipping college. And so now, early age, they want to specialize. And at 6 years old, you want that trainer to train you. He's not doing it for free. His time's valued. So again, I think you nailed it. It's different in other parts of the world. In U.S., pay to play, unfortunately, I feel it's here to stay.
Guys, I've sat down with Juan Martinez. Juan, thank you for your time. President and Executive Director of DKSC. Juan is also a valued member of the Facebook group in the broader soccer community. Juan, you have your own show. I'm looking forward to seeing some content that you guys are going to continue to create in 2025. You can reach out to Juan if you're thinking about starting a soccer club. Juan is very accessible. DM him, get in his DMs, tag him, befriend him, and he'll share with you the good, the bad, and the ugly. So Juan, thank you so much for your time, guys. My name is Neil Crawford. I'm the founder of Anytime Soccer Training and also the host of the Inside Scoop. Let's get better together.
Thank you, Neil.